Yo, what's good, YouTube? Your man Roberto Flack here. Apologize for the brief absence, man. Been under the weather, as you can probably tell. But just wanted to do a recap. I know it's a little late with the Mosley and Pacquiao fight, as well as other things that have strung off from that fight and what's going to be happening in the near future. So let's talk about the fight real quick, man. Wasn't overly exciting fight. Going into the fight, I thought it would be a toe-to-toe battle early on with Pacquiao just, I don't want to say coasting, but pretty much dominating the fight. Too much speed, underrated power for a welterweight now. I mean, I think it's safe to say he's a full-fledged welterweight now, and he feeling each other out first couple of rounds. In the third round, Pacquiao landed a hard left shot to like the side of Mosley's head, and according to Mosley, he said he hadn't felt a shot like that in a while or ever, and it was one of the hardest shots he's been hit with. So for the rest of that fight, it was pretty much something we were not used to seeing in Shane, and that was he was pretty much running. He after that knockdown, he wanted no part of Manny Pacquiao. He didn't want to exchange. It was never like a very great technical boxer, so that was already out the window. So Pacquiao, he pretty much just did as much as he could against a guy who wasn't going to fight. On top of the leg cramp that apparently he kind of suffered during the fight. That really couldn't help, considering you could see there wasn't like that bounce, with his footwork, as he usually is able to commit to shots and able to be a little more effective. He still landed punches on Mosley, but it wasn't as consistent as we've been used to seeing him. But with the intangibles that were included in the fight with both guys, I mean, it happens sometimes. I mean, styles make fights. Fortunately, it just wasn't the most exciting fight we've seen from either guys. So, but Pacquiao dominated, went in there and hurt a tough Shane Mosley. But I think at this point, Shane Mosley needs to retire. I think there's nothing more for him to prove. There's really no big paydays out there for him. Like, even fights with Andre Berto and these guys, it's like, I think Mosley's already past the point of him being a stepping stone for somebody else. And I don't think, out of respect to his career, I don't think he should be that guy. I think, he should just ride off. He's had a great career, and he's got a fine-ass girlfriend, too. So I'm sure she's going to be keeping him busy. But so what's happening now is obviously what I mentioned, months and months prior, which was who is he going to fight next? And he's going to fight, and speaking of Pacquiao, and according to what sources are saying, we're going to be seeing the Trilogy match, the fight to complete the trilogy between Juan Marquez and Manny Pacquiao, slated for November 12th at a catch weight of 144 pounds. And, a lot of people are already complaining about this fight. They think it's a pointless fight. It's hard to argue, considering the fact that obviously, Marquez is still a lightweight. And, he's going to come again up to welterweight and fight one of his arch rivals. Now, the comparison is going to be made to Mayweather doing, what he did, making Juan come up. Or, well, I don't want to say Juan, Marquez, making him come up and basically fighting out of his comfort zone. And I think with Pacquiao, in comparison to Marquez, they've gradually brought him up to welterweight. And I think in the past year and a half or so, Pacquiao's filled into welterweight. I mean, I don't even think he can make a 135 or barely make 140. As many times as people say, oh yeah, he can make 140. Guys, gotta understand something. at a certain point in your career, when you're making a certain weight, it's gonna be tough for you to go back down. And we've seen that throughout history when people try to go back down. Roy Jones. So, strategically, I mean, I'm not surprised that they're putting this catch rate at 144. Now, do I think this will be a competitive fight? I think it'll be a more competitive fight than what we saw in Mosley, just because of the style that Marquez brings. Marquez used to be he used to rely solely on counterpunching, and he was a very technical boxer, like early on in his career. But as his career progressed, he seemed to be able to fight too, and you saw a lot of that in the Pacquiao fights, as well as fights with Casamayor and as recent as Katsidas and Baby Bull. So he could fight, and he's gonna fight against Pacquiao. Now, whether it's gonna be as competitive as they were in the last two fights, that's yet to be seen. Pacquiao obviously is he's progressed since his fights with Marquez, and I think some may argue that he hasn't changed his style. I don't think he's changed his style, meaning a Pacquiao, but I think he's developed boxing skills, or they've polished him like much better than what he was at when he last fought Marquez. A little more patient, a little more technique in his arsenal. Solid with both hands now, and I think it's gonna be a different fight. But again, styles make fights, so not overly excited, but I think it may be a better fight than people think. So I guess we'll have to see about that. So the next topic, I guess, is the talks of there's these videos that have been coming out, or there's one video that Fight Hype's I guess they're doing a series on Mayweather, and the big talk now is Mayweather's kind of, I guess, trying to come out of the box, the proverbial box, because you really don't hear a lot from him when dealing with Pacquiao, and it's mostly Pacquiao's team saying whether if it's you don't want to fight, or Floyd don't want to fight, or you turn down tests, or you turn down the fight, or whatever. So now he's coming out with videos. If you go to fighthype.com, it's on there. He's basically just, I guess, telling his side of the story, because we don't hear from Floyd. When we see all these stories, we don't hear from him. So, we can only go by, what we're being told. And obviously, some of the sources are kind of like, well, why would these people be lying? Especially people in Floyd's team. But, I get, he's talking about, how he agreed to everything. He said that he had a copy of the contract that shows he signed, and Pacquiao didn't sign his portion or whatever. So, I think at this point, man, it's like there's not much you can say. It's either you're gonna fight or you're not gonna fight. You can mention blood test and do all this, that, and the third, but it's like it gets to a point, man, where it's like, you as a fan of a fighter, there has to be a point where you have to realize, like, look, not only are you inactive or been inactive, but you're also aging as well while being inactive, which at 34, 33, 34, 35 isn't the smartest thing. And, I think really now is the time where we're going to really see, I think within this year, after this Marquez fight and whatnot, I think this is truthfully when we're going to see if this fight is really going to happen or not. Part of me is starting to believe that this fight is never going to happen. I think, and I don't think it's, obviously it's not right for us, because, this is, in our generation, this is our biggest fight. But if it doesn't happen, I mean, I find it really hard to believe that it's going to be a big blow to Pacquiao. as far as his credibility is concerned, because he's continuing to fight. And, and when one guy's not fighting and the other one is just fighting all comers, especially fighting guys that his rival never fought either, it's kind of tough to like hold a candle to that. Because it's like, where do you go from there? Like, how can you critique Pacquiao when he's just fighting who's there? Because it's like this: if this fight doesn't happen, Pacquiao's going to end up fighting the young guns, and the welterweight division now is starting to build again. Because it kind of fell off a little bit in the last couple of years. But now you got Vic Ortiz in there. You still got Berto in there, who I don't know. You got Robert Guerrero who's coming up. You got Mir Khan. I mean, these are matchups that I think can be made. Maybe not Mir Khan, but I think a fight with Victor Ortiz, if the Floyd fight doesn't come off, that's a potential fight. And at that point, how can you argue? And again, this is on the assumption that Pacquiao is going to continue to fight after the Marquez fight, and if the Floyd fight doesn't happen after that, because it's got to happen. So we'll see what happens, though. We'll see what happens. To check the Floyd interview out, go to FightHype.com. They got a thing on it, and I guess to see what happens this weekend. Bernard Hopkins and Jean Pascal too, as well as Andre Ward and Arthur Abraham. So before the weekend comes, I'll give my prediction, which will probably be tomorrow, and we'll see what's good with those fights. Stay tuned. Peace.